Thank you for attending this breakout session for Trust 23, the Data Integrity Summit. A couple of housekeeping items before we get started. Just do note this session is being recorded, and if you must step away, please do not hit the pause button. It can cause some issues with your viewing of other sessions within Trust 23. A couple of other things. If you have questions during the session, please use the Q&A tab to communicate with the presenters. We have time at the end for Q&A, for audience Q&A, and we would love to hear your questions. So do know that we're going to be answering as many as we can. If your question does not get answered during the session, somebody from Precisely will get back to you and answer your question. Also, get in touch with us if you've got more questions. You can use the demo chat and content buttons in the menu on the left and below in the session details to set up a meeting. Also, we've got event feedback surveys coming in at the end of each of the sessions during Trust 23, and really would appreciate your feedback. Any input you can give us makes these a much better event in the future. So thank you very much, and let's move on with the breakout session. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to this breakout session for Precisely's Trust 23 Data Integrity Summit. Today, we're going to be talking about applying hyperautomation to SAP processes for better business results. I'm Andrew Hayden. I'm the Senior Product Marketing Manager for our Automate products here at Precisely, and I will be your host today. Joining me will also be Josh Whitener from ExxonMobil. Josh, do you want to take a moment and introduce yourself and tell the folks a little bit about your background?
Hi, everyone. Like Andrew said, my name is Josh Whitener. I am the systems architect for the modern processes team at ExxonMobil. So right now we focused on using Precisely Automate to find and automate business processes on both the Emmet and business side across the organization.
Great. Can you just say what Emmet is?
Okay. Yeah. Emmet is ExxonMobil IT.
Okay, cool. All right. Thanks, Josh. And Josh will be back with us in just a couple of minutes. All right. What are we going to talk about today? Well, I'm going to talk to you about why automation. Why has automation become really so important to our digital transformation efforts, especially coming out of the pandemic? And where were we before that? I'm going to talk to you about hyperautomation specifically and talk about the definition of hyperautomation and how we look at it here at Precisely. And I think really put everybody on a level playing field when we discuss what it is and why it's important. I'm going to talk to you about the Precisely Automate platform. Again, what it is and how you can apply it as part of that hyperautomation strategy in your business, especially around these complex data-intensive SAP processes. Beyond that, I'm going to summarize briefly what I talked about, and then I'm going to turn it over to Josh, and he's going to talk to you about what ExxonMobil is doing in the marketplace. And after that, Josh and I are going to do a little Q&A amongst ourselves before getting to your audience questions. All right, so why automation? Why is automation so hot right now, especially coming out of the pandemic and all the things we learned about digital transformation and really kind of the exposure we had to the limitations of our digital transformation efforts up to now. And coming out of it, we've really found three areas that our customers are talking to us about that they need to do and they need to address with regards to digital transformation. The first one of those areas is agility. I think there's a recognition that with what we had happen and the continuing disruptions we have in the market, this needs to be agile in our businesses, to be able to pivot and move and make changes really almost overnight, as we've seen in the past and as we continue to see. We want to be ready for that next disruption, and we want to make sure that we can change our business quickly enough and maintain a competitive advantage being as agile as possible. The other thing we see is we need to go faster. Now, this has always been an issue around businesses, but as the pace of business continues to accelerate, we want to be able to go faster along with it. So this need to be more agile, this need to go faster are two of the things we recognize coming out. The third part of it we also see is this need to improve the quality and integrity of our most important data. And the data we're going to talk about today is SAP master data and that data that we manage through those core SAP processes. HFS, which is an analyst firm out of the UK, said it very well a few years ago when they said, technology is a means to an end, but data is the currency of digital transformation. And I think when we look at that in the relationship to automation, it's very important to look at how can automation and the technology of automation really be that means to an end to drive your digital transformation and the data, manage the data through your digital transformation. Another thing we always consider very important is understanding this interdependence of process and data. You can't really do a process improvement initiative without looking at the data that that process creates and manages. So if you've got a process that is creating bad data to begin with, and all you're looking at is driving efficiency into that process, you can end up creating a lot of bad data very, very quickly. And that's just bad for your business. The same thing goes on data quality initiatives. If you're doing a data quality initiative without looking at the processes that are creating and managing that data, you can just end up eternally doing data quality improvements. So this interdependence of process and data is something that's very, very important to look at. And it's really, really important as we move into this hyperautomation space. And so let's look at what is hyperautomation. Now, this is something that has been with us probably for about half a decade, maybe a little bit longer, but it's becoming something we're seeing more and more. It's becoming more and more prevalent as that need for agility and speed and improved data quality and data integrity is becoming part of the forefront of our business. It's part of the way that we manage and run our businesses today. It was a term that was coined by Gartner a number of years ago. And in Gartner's definition, if you think about it, what they said is hyperautomation is a business-driven, disciplined approach that organizations use to rapidly identify, vet, and automate as many business and IT processes as possible. Basically, how do we automate as many things as possible across our business? The second part of this, though, is absolutely critical, which is it involves the orchestrated use of multiple technologies, tools, and platforms. It is not a case of find one platform, it's going to do everything for you. Find one technology or one provider. So being single application focused or a single provider focused really doesn't serve your hyperautomation needs as well as looking at it from a portfolio approach. And we've got a customer who said it very well a couple of years ago, and this is one of the largest alcoholic beverage and spirits manufacturers in the world. And they said, we have Blue Prism and Precisely Automate, and we choose the best tool on a case-by-case basis. So this in many ways kind of encapsulates how that hyperautomation strategy works. They're looking at a portfolio of RPA tools and our platform and saying, which one of these, depending on the process, is going to be the best one for us? And so that's where the Precisely Automate platform comes in, because we believe we can be the center of a hyperautomation strategy and work with many, many other tools and many other systems of record. But if your business is centered on SAP, we can really help you drive efficiencies through that. Our platform consists primarily of two products. It's Automate Evolve and Automate Studio. Automate Evolve is that workflow engine that helps you drive those complex data-intensive processes for SAP. We've done this for a very, very long time. We've spent the last 20 years automating SAP processes. Automate Studio is our desktop product that is really great for those mass data processes. And in combination, these two give you that complete automation platform. So you get the data automation, which in our world is that Excel to SAP integration, so that you're able to manage your data in Excel, which we already know most companies are already doing, and use that as your primary interface for managing SAP data. And then the other side of it is we've got process automation. And process automation really falls into two categories. It falls into Excel workflow. And Excel workflow is where you're moving those data automation files through a complex workflow, say journal entries in finance. And at the end of that process, your data is automatically posted into SAP from the Excel file. And you can even attach that Excel file. So your business rules are being followed, and you got a very governed process. Form and workflow, on the other hand, is for those processes, those complex data-intensive processes where you often have multiple constituents throughout an organization. So it often will start with a process initiator, they enter some basic data, and then you've got multiple contributors who each either see the data they need to review or receive a form that just asks for the data they need to contribute. Once everybody in that chain has added their data to it, and this can happen in parallel or sequentially, you have a final approver. Once they hit approval, it automatically posts that data to SAP. So it drives a lot of efficiencies through these very complex processes that around SAP are often the core processes in our business. And what does that platform give you? Well, it gives you that full set of tools that you need for hyperautomation to really act as the core of your hyperautomation strategy. So you get workflow, as I mentioned, and the way that you can manage those complex processes and automate those complex processes. It gives you interoperability through API. So you can connect multiple systems of record to SAP. We often see people talking to us about Salesforce and SAP and being able to coordinate those processes across the two. Portal-based self-service. And what portal-based self-service enables is somebody outside of the organization to be able to contribute to that workflow. You also have the data management I talked about. You have cloud deployment that's becoming more and more important for us as we look to simplify our IT environments. You can govern this entire process. It's one of the biggest challenges with manual data processes and a lot of these Excel-based processes is they are completely ungoverned. You have a low-code development environment. So your citizen developers become a very important part of driving automation across your organization. And it's a core part of hyperautomation. And Josh is going to address how ExxonMobil is using citizen developers to really expand their automation at ExxonMobil as well. You have attended and unattended automation. So you've often got human in the people in the loop, and these human in the loop processes are those more important and more complex processes we see. I talked about forms, and ultimately it's about improving your data quality and your integrity across that system. So you have trusted data that you can work with and make those critical business decisions. And with that, you get that agility that you need. You're able to get the speed out of those processes that you want. Because of the integrated data stewardship, you can improve your data quality as well. Process visibility is an important thing to understand what's happening throughout an entire process. With manual ungoverned processes, you don't get that. Business team focus, again, citizen developers being a core part of it. There's something we've been focused on from the very beginning. So for 20 years, we've worked with business teams and with citizen developers. Automation flexibility, what is the interface you're going to use? Is it going to be forms? Is it going to be an Excel file? Is it going to happen in parallel? Is it going to be sequential? All of those various factors are things you can determine, but the platform gives you that level of flexibility. Scalability. I'll just leave that up to Josh to show you in his part of it, how Exxon is scaling this across their organization. And again, we have a proven track record. We've done this for nearly 20 years. And don't just ask us, look at some of the examples that we've seen customers and some of the success we've seen customers achieve. And for the sake of time, I'm not going to go through all these, but 50 to 75% reduction in time to market. This is a beverage company that cut their time to market in half in a highly competitive environment, driving competitive advantage for them. 97% reduction in time to create a customer. They went from 144 hours to 6. 90% reduction in the cost to process materials changes. These are different customers, but they could all be the exact same company because this is what hyperautomation offers for you across your organization. All right, so real quickly in summary, what are we saying? Well, automation is that new driver for your digital transformation journey. It is the way that you are going to achieve those digital transformation goals. And hyperautomation really is successful. It is possible to have a successful hyperautomation strategy, but there's a few things you need to look at. One, you want to focus on that interdependence of process and data. You want to make sure that you're looking at both of those things. You want to adopt the right automation platform to be at the core and the heart of that hyperautomation strategy. It's not going to be the only technology you use, but if it can work across multiple processes and with multiple systems, it really helps you in terms of your flexibility within your organization. You want to be able to identify the right processes. Again, Josh is going to talk about some information about how ExxonMobil goes about looking at where do they implement automation and hyperautomation throughout their organization. You want to understand how to measure success. I showed you that slide very briefly about all of those different ways that people are looking at. Sometimes it's time saving, sometimes it's money. What's going to be the right way of measuring success for your organization? And finally, you want to work on building a cross-functional dedicated team. That's my part of it. Before I turn it over to Josh, I know one thing I want to say. There's many of you who in the SAP community, you may not know who Precisely is, and you may not be aware that we've been doing this for a very long time. But there's a good chance you are aware of Windshuttle. And in 2021, Precisely acquired Windshuttle. So we have been, as Windshuttle, automating SAP processes since 2003. We're very familiar with this, and we have a lot of, we have thousands of customers worldwide who are very happy and very satisfied being able to automate and drive efficiencies through their processes. I am very pleased to say that ExxonMobil is one of those customers, and I am very proud to be able to introduce Josh once again and have Josh Whitener talk you through what's happening at ExxonMobil with automation and with their hyperautomation strategy. So, Josh, take it away.
Welcome everyone to the Trust 23 ExxonMobil presentation on hyperautomation. My name is Josh Whitener. I am the system architect for the Modern Processes team here at ExxonMobil IT. And we're focused on bringing automation to the business and the enterprise at large. In 2018, we had 3 team members, a scope of 4 solutions for chemicals master data only, no scripts planned, no COE team members, and no citizen developers. Today, we have over 26 team members that are in 4 regional locations across the globe. We have over 130 workflow solutions that span 30 organizations, with another 15 organizations that use over 850 scripts. A total of 45 organizations that use Precisely Automate tools. We have over 430 COE members. These are people across the organization that are interested in what our team is doing, any special offers, developments, and other things that are going on within the modern processes space. And we have almost 100 citizen developers that we partner with and educate and train to help them develop solutions for their respective areas. In addition, we maintain 3 citizen developer network channels. These are specific to the areas that are relevant to a group of citizen developers, for instance, upstream or downstream, chemicals, finance, etc. Our current roadmap starts with a migration of all of our solutions and scripts to the Evolve platform. This should conclude at the end of the year, at which point we will turn our attention to expanding the network for our citizen developers. This includes increasing the engagement cadence, the scope of material that's available, the training, and the guidances and best practices. And while we're working on the Citizen Developer Network, we have already started rebranding our services that the Modern Processes team brings to the business into something called Simplify. It takes the technology for Precisely Automate Evolve Studio and combines it with solution development, guidance, and other services that we offer, support and maintenance included, into a one-stop shop that the business can reach out and engage us with. We also want to start thinking beyond SAP. While SAP is critical to most large businesses, the processes that actually touch SAP are often precursed or have processes that come after, don't actually touch SAP directly, but are just as important to the end-to-end in whatever delivery item it is focused on, whether it's create a customer, or create a material, or extend something to a plant. So we are proof of concepting self-service solutions, both externally and allowing our developers internally to leverage that no-code, low-code ability to lay out interactions with the UI for various business groups. And then finally, the goal of the foreseeable future is hyperautomation. This is, again, empowering the citizen developers to fill in the solution needs for both high impact and high value solutions, but also the supporting processes for those. One of the biggest obstacles that a medium to large size organization can face is just making the business aware that the tool exists, what its capabilities are, and what problems it can solve. It's a constant battle of information and requires constant marketing. We are continuously engaging at all levels, from users to managers to subject matter experts and global process improvement groups. But we have found that one of the drivers of success to marketing our tool is the citizen developers themselves. When a user likes our tool, they share it sometimes. When a manager likes the tool, it saves them time and money and improve their process, they will definitely share it where they can. When a citizen developer creates a tool that is successful and brings the business value, they have a sense of ownership that drives them to demonstrate and share that tool. And so we have found that it's incredibly important to maintain that partnership with the business and to transfer a sense of ownership to the business. And while word of mouth is very important, we have found that it's important not to neglect the other channels as well. To that end, we have created a one-stop shop for our citizen developers and other users. The idea is to have one place where they can come and engage the COE on any matter that is needed to get the solution developed and deployed. And this can range from training to questions to design elements to integrations with other platforms, anything. It's a flexible relationship. That's the key, and it's also a partnership. The idea that we have is to empower the ownership of these solutions in the business. They're really solutions for the business to use, and if the business feels like they own them, they will make them better. They will know how to improve them, and that partnership will only strengthen with time. Let's talk about the elephant in the room when getting to hyperautomation. When you take a centralized set of skills for a given tool, and you put them together and you funnel all work through this team, it does not matter how skilled they are, individually or collectively. It does not matter how productive they are or their ability to deliver. There's going to be a major issue, and that is bottlenecking. When you force solutions to go through one spot, bottlenecking is unavoidable. As the organization gets larger and identifies more opportunities for automation, there is just no space, no bandwidth available to deliver on those quantity of opportunities. Our team is currently working on 4 to 5 major initiatives. These will take between 3 to 12 months to deliver. Until these are done, there are no other opportunities our team can actually work on. And that means the vast majority of these opportunities are in the waiting area for 1 to 2 years. There's a threshold within the business that at some point, based on how long they have to wait, they will give up with an ideal solution or the best fit solution and move to something that will get them in some kind of improvement, no matter how inferior that improvement might be. And this comes with a cost, essentially a refactoring cost, but at the organization level, because once a solution is built, it's harder to replace with a solution that should have been built in the first place. And this is a demoralizing message to both sides. The modern processes team wants to work on these opportunities, wants to deliver value to the business, but they're essentially handcuffed by this bottlenecking. And the business wants improvement. They want to be able to deliver to their customers at a better rate, a better speed, with less issues. And they're handcuffed by an IT schedule that does not fit their needs. And the path for us to get to hyperautomation is going to require a change in the relationship between our team and the business. That change recognizes that the business knows the business best. They know all their processes. They know the manual steps required to complete them. They know the pain points. They know the quasi-tools they currently use today to try and make those processes as painless as possible. But they don't know the technologies that are currently available. They don't know what the Automate suite can provide, how it works, which things that the business does that it can do better, easier, and faster. So the relationship changes to one where the business brings all their opportunities to the COE for guidance, not for being built, not for development, but to help develop a plan, to help prioritize which processes bring the most value and can be converted using the tool in the fastest timeline in order to reach that end state as much automation as possible. Beyond the automation itself, the COE supplies support and a continuing investment in the improvement of those solutions and the processes. Oftentimes, where the business sees one end to end, the end and the beginning of that process can actually be extended to include one or more steps, or be integrated with a precursor process or a follow-up process. This change in relationship between the COE, between IT and the business, leads to the prize, which is lateral scaling. Lateral scaling is just a concept that in a given amount of time, the business can produce and deliver solutions at a rate that exponentially grows beyond what the COE can deliver. The COE is a primary enabler of this lateral scaling. By divesting its resources and skills into a support services role, business gets the value and confidence that they have a foundation to stand on to deliver and support these solutions for their lifecycle. Lateral scaling also includes the benefit of ownership on the business side. The business understanding the business best, are able to decide which solution should go out first. The ability to improve these solutions also increases. We have found that when the business developer, the citizen developer, is speaking to business stakeholders, they often know the language better and the business terms. And this allows them to identify improvements to the solution in ways that cannot be achieved even with highly skilled members of the COE participating. Without a dedication to a single business unit or a single resource, it's hard to justify. And so the lateral scaling becomes this exponential growth and ends up saturating the opportunities that need to be automated. Hyperautomation is incredibly important, and it is a goal worth pursuing. That is going to be our focus for the foreseeable future.
Thanks, Josh. It was great to hear a little bit more about how ExxonMobil is using the Precisely Automate portfolio to really drive a lot of efficiencies through your organization, and as you grow its presence across Emmett and across ExxonMobil in general. Now, one thing I do have, I've got a number of questions that have been asked by people within Precisely. So I'm hoping we can go through those really quickly. And once we get through those, maybe we'll have some time for audience questions too. How's that sound?
Sounds great.
All right, perfect. One of the things you mentioned was that your team is global. Are you all based in Houston, or is the team distributed? So how are you basically organized when it comes to that global organization?
Our team is not assigning particular roles to particular regions. It's distributed globally just based on need. We have our team members in Thailand and Curitiba and Houston, and they all perform different functions. So we have developers in every spot. We have some agile team members in every spot, like Scrum Masters, our product owners in Curitiba, and so on.
Okay, cool. So it's not, there's not like one group assigned to one specific thing. It's just as the need arises, you just use it, leverage the local teams.
We've considered stacking teams to be kind of local, self-sustained for that region, but the problem becomes a bit on the staffing side, right? Because in order to do that, you have to have a product owner and the full agile stack across each region, and
right.
a little bit hard to justify in some cases.
Okay. You also talked about citizen developers. How do you, within your organization, sort of identify and then train citizen developers?
So first of all, we look for someone who is interested on the business side, and we always position this to the business, and we'll talk a little bit more later. But the business is given an opportunity, right? They can use our COE team expertise to build their solutions. Our schedule is backed up, so they have to wait. Otherwise, we will present them a license, and they can take that and use their own schedule, and there's some benefits to that. And we make sure that they understand that it is a partnership, so that we are there to help their citizen developer get up to speed as quickly as possible, and to be able to develop solutions that will make it to production within a time frame that is acceptable.
So it really is that coordinated effort across both your team and then the business team that you're working with.
Right. We don't believe in throwing it over the fence and saying, good luck. It's definitely a partnership.
Oh yeah, the have fun is not necessarily a good thing. A couple of the key tenets of hyperautomation are identifying and vetting processes. What are the best processes for automation? So what are some of the ways that you guys at ExxonMobil go about doing this? So how do you identify the processes, and then how do you figure out, this is the right process to apply automation to, or apply the Precisely Automate?
And so it's probably not a surprise to anyone who works in any kind of decent size organization or larger that there is more business problems than can be solved. So we take our technological expertise, our knowledge of the application and the tool, and we sit down with the business and go over their problems, their areas that need to be automated or are viable for automating. And they tell us what is most impactful to the business, and we tell them how the tool can be applied. And by merging those, we can surface up the ones that have the best value, the highest impact, the delivery schedule that meets needs.
And how closely do you guys work with other automation teams? I know that ExxonMobil has a number of other teams that you work with. So how closely do you work with those and with your SAP COE and so forth?
The SAP COE we work with quite a bit, and that's because of the pragmatic need for authorizations and service counts and all sorts of stuff that might be involved in a given solution. So the integration with the other teams is really a solution specific question, right? In some cases, we can provide the end-to-end all within Precisely Automate. In some cases, we'll need to reach out to iDocs, to some other application, UiPath, RPA bots, to fulfill certain gaps, right?
Yeah.
But it's not as often as you would think. Maybe I would guesstimate around 10% of solutions need that kind of integration.
I guess that you find that the Precisely Automate portfolio gives you a fairly robust tool set to work with to really address most of the needs that your team has.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Good to know. Obviously, this is a journey. It always is for everybody. And you mentioned that your team tends to be fairly backed up, but how far in advance do you kind of project what your roadmap and plan is in terms of looking? I know you walked through kind of what your plans are for expansion within ExxonMobil, but how far in advance do you kind of get down to the brass tacks, roadmap, figuring this is where we're going to go next?
So it ranges from, because some of the solution sizes are vastly different. You can have solutions you build within a couple of weeks, a month, sometimes that we have one that's taken 18 months, right? So
Yeah.
we tend to look at the board in a window from about 6 months to, I would say, up to a maximum of 2 years. Anything more than 2 years, and we're stepping toes into a strategical space.
Yeah.
Where long term we have to bring in more players to give more feedback on what might look like. But we do have solutions on our books that will be picked up within about 8-9 months to start talking about building it. So
fairly long time frame, though. I mean, you're still looking at half a year or more in many cases.
Right.
Okay. I know you can't talk specifics about use cases, but as you've rolled the program out, what are some of the benefits that you guys have seen and some of the results you've seen, or any that you can talk about in terms of just what's it given back to the business, really?
There are numerous metrics, and like you said, I can't talk about all of them. But for instance, our Fuse Master Data solutions are one of our showcase set of solutions. There's the team, it's a citizen developer team that started off with 4 solutions for customer create and ship to and biller and payer and stuff like that. And it's expanded up to like 50 solutions by today. So over the course of about 3 years, they've expanded that much. And one of the metrics I can talk about is recycle rate. So this is a pretty common issue across any enterprise process, is that in any given step, someone enters information and moves it to the next step, but they might have missed information, got something wrong, whatever. And that team has to move it back. And this back and forth creates huge delay in whatever the deliverable might be. And that recycle rate for some of our master data before Precisely Automate was up in the 30 to 40% range for any request. And that's just like per step. So it could be cumulative.
Ooh.
And now that we have implemented those solutions, we're down to less than 1.5% recycle rate.
Wow. That's giving a lot back. So that just translates into a significant time savings as well.
Yeah, across the board, because even you're basically eliminating not only the person's requirement to check and validate, because those are automated with the business rules, but also the waiting for the person to recycle it back to you after they correct whatever's wrong. So there's a huge amount of time that each person in the process gets to focus on their core responsibilities.
You guys basically, and I think you covered this, as I mentioned, ExxonMobil kind of looks at automation from a portfolio approach, but you guys are just, your team is dedicated to just the Precisely Automate product. So you have this global team, and they're working in Studio and Evolve primarily, almost exclusively.
Almost exclusively, although we do keep an eye out for technologies that will complement it. We are the modern processes team, so it's not just limited to the
Okay.
Precisely Automate. And we're keeping an eye out for instance, on the Precisely Data Integrity Suite and how we might play a role in that in the long-term future. That's quite a ways down the road right now, but we have looked at other technologies that would complement, like Alteryx and some other workflow type things that might fill in a gap. But like I said earlier, we have our integration with other technologies is so limited right now that we haven't really found a good technology to expand the portfolio yet.
Okay, that's great news for us. We like to hear that. And I know we work very closely with your team in terms of making sure that if there are gaps, we are working to help you fill them. So I do appreciate your time answering those questions, and hopefully now we will have some time to take some attendee questions. And just to let everyone know, hopefully you've been adding your questions into the Q&A box. We will look at those live in just a few minutes, but do want to let you know if we do not have a chance to answer your question, somebody from Precisely will get back to you with an answer to it. So Josh, I want to thank you very much for being here. We greatly appreciate you. We greatly appreciate your time. And we very much appreciate ExxonMobil as a customer and a partner with us, working really hard to develop, and help your business just do the best you can and be as productive as you can be. So any final thoughts or comments or things you would like to leave the audience with?
No, thank you, Andrew, for having me. Glad to be here. Glad to help where I can.
Well, thank you very much. And we'll do audience questions now.